Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. I completely neglected to check on my post for the last few days, and it seems I angered the Reddit community. This post was removed, so I revised the title, hoping to appease them. As I stated before, life has been pretty great, except for what I'm about to post here. Just a little update on me and my kids. We're all doing well. I'm still with my boyfriend Kyle, and we're enjoying a meaningful, loving, and wild relationship. I'm no longer a dancer as I had to undergo surgery on my lower back to fix a spinal issue that I had been dealing with for several years. Due to some internal drama at the club, I decided to quit. It wasn't anything noteworthy, as it had nothing to do with me personally. I now work from home again, but I'm still good friends with everyone at the club. Anyway, that's about it for the update. On to the craziness. Well, as you saw by the title, you might have a clue. I got a phone call a month ago informing me that my mother, whom I call Beelzebub, passed away in prison from a stroke. At first, I didn't care. I told them that it was their problem, not mine. But my attitude changed when they told me that I was entitled to some inheritance. That threw me for a loop. Beelzebub never had a will. So whatever she had in finances and assets was to be split between me and my two siblings. Apparently, she had been dead for over 4 months, and I was only just informed about it. Strange. I became unhinged when I heard the amount. From the deaths of my grandparents, she was sitting on nearly $500,000. I had assumed she squandered the money to pay for her own nonsense during the years I still lived with her, which was why she always demanded money from me. But no, she never touched it and just lived off Social Security, whatever she could get from relatives, and my income up until I moved out. I was seething. Not only did she have the money to pay her own bills, but she also took so much money from me over the years and put me through all kinds of trouble because of her own greed and narcissism. I was furious. In total, she had the $500,000, the house, and my grandparents' house in assets. A lawyer was assigned to her estate recently to work everything out, and she spoke with my siblings about their shares. Because they are also in jail, they want me to be the one to handle it all. So I had to take time off work and go back to my old state to handle everything. I visited my siblings in jail, and we talked. They both acknowledged that Beelzebub had destroyed their lives in many ways and manipulated them into treating me poorly. I learned the reason behind why Beelzebub had it out for me. I was the only one that worked hard to succeed in life. My siblings were both lazy and just gave in whenever she snapped her fingers. Not me. I was the better child, and she resented me for it. She saw I was going to surpass her in life, and it bothered her. She did love my son, but it was a love built on a foundation of jealousy and bitterness that she felt for me. Not healthy. I chose to have her cremated, as I wasn't going to plan an elaborate funeral for the woman who tried to destroy my life and kidnap my child. Her ashes were dumped into the nearest body of water, eliminating her from existence. Farewell, Beelzebub. My siblings asked me to hold their shares until they were released. They both apologized and said they won't be a bother to me once they are. I told them it was no trouble and that I forgive them. Maybe we can work on some form of a familial relationship once they are out. Maybe. I'm very skeptical. I decided to give them both the houses and their shares of the money once they are free. I have no desire to live in my old state again so close to my ex-husband. I set up a bank account and put their shares into it, and it'll sit there until they are free. The house keys are in a safety deposit box at the bank, along with the house deeds and some other heirlooms I don't want for myself. I was able to go into my old house and collect a few things I had left behind when I moved. On to the drama. A few of my unpleasant relatives learned about Beelzebub dying and filed in small claims court to sue me for a cut of the inheritance. Apparently, Beelzebub had borrowed a lot of money from them and never paid it back, so they were going to go after me for it. The judge dismissed their cases because there was no contract, and because Beelzebub is dead, there was no way to determine if their claims were true or not. If they had simply asked me, I would have given them some of the money, but now, because they tried suing me, I'm keeping the cash out of sheer spite. One of them even tried to get their claim on a popular television judge show, but it didn't work. I guess the judge had better things to do. No, madam, I will not appear on national television so you can get some petty revenge against me for something my mother did. Forget you. This relative who is a cousin has been all over Facebook, threatening me for the better part of a week. She is making claims against me that I am abusing my children, threatening to call Child Protective Services, and accusing me of stealing from her, and a bunch of other things that the other relatives are trying to question me about. I sent her a very direct message that if she didn't tell the truth, I would be sending the screenshots to her employer and filing against her in small claims court. I reminded her that her case was thrown out because she can't get blood from a turnip. Beelzebub borrowed money, and sorry, but that isn't my problem. She was forced to tell the truth, and now many of my relatives won't talk to her. Mind you, most of them are unpleasant, so they get no points for the minor amounts of integrity. I'm back home now and ready to continue on with my life like this last month didn't happen. People are crazy. Anyway, see you all on the flip side, Reddit fam. I worked front desk at an optical store for 2 years. I had no experience and knew nothing about eye health when I started. Over time, I learned to do contact lens training, how to work the machine for glaucoma testing, visual field testing, how to adjust glasses, and a little bit about sales. There was a fire and we had to relocate, which brought on a lot of stress to boss lady. We'll call her ma'am. We ended up losing our tech who did the contact lens trainings and visual fields, and our lead optician. Being the type of person who doesn't like to see others struggle, I always offered to help whenever I could, especially if the patient was nice. When we reopened, ma'am's husband came to work at the office as manager, which at the time I thought was nice because I'm sure she needed the extra support. We'll call him Sir. He knew nothing about optical, so he was also training while managing. The problems started on opening day with Sir and I. He wanted to play meditation music and forest sounds. Everyone else wanted general pop and regular music. Since I had access to the speaker, I would adjust it for them. He loved the new space. I missed the old space but never spoke bad about the new one. If the office was busy and a pair of glasses needed to be adjusted, I'd offer or be asked to help, and in front of the patient he'd yell, "Do you know what you're doing?" One time I turned to him and said, "I've been doing it longer than you." I'm sure he didn't like that lol. We had a meeting where he had no bad comments about my work but told me I make him want to leave lol. He would report every word and minor mistake I made to ma'am, and she would send me random texts about them outside of work hours. I never got in trouble for anything, but it was annoying AF. Story. On one particular day, I was doing mostly contact lenses trainings, and a patient called about a contact lens being stuck in her eye. These were considered emergencies, so I told her to come in and see the doctor. Ma'am. When the patient came in, she looked really uncomfortable and asked how long until she's seen. I offered to take a look until she could see the doctor. When I took her to the back, I tried taking out the lens and couldn't find anything. I told her this, and she looked discouraged. I said to her, "I don't see or feel anything, so you'd be better off waiting for the doctor, and that ain't me." She laughed it off. I told her I'd been doing trainings all day and was hoping to help her, and apologized. She said it was okay and sat in the front. Apparently, she went into the room, and ma'am told her there were no contacts in her eyes. The patient said that the nurse told her there's a lens in her eye, and she wanted ma'am to double-check. Ma'am was really upset about this because she had to spend extra time explaining to the patient that I was nothing more than a receptionist. When she came out, she made sure to berate me in front of the patient and my co-workers. I just nodded and apologized. Even after work, she pulled me aside to ask what I said to the patient, and I told her every word. Still, she felt the need to tell me that I make her job harder by misinforming patients. She said I should stay at a receptionist level and not help anyone because it causes trouble. I was shocked by how she spoke down to me, and still believed that I told the patient I was a nurse and she had something in her eye. All I could muster up was, "Okay, I'm really sorry about that." After that day, I no longer did contact lens trainings, so now appointments are 4 to 5 weeks out instead of 1. I no longer assisted in visual field tests. I put them all on her schedule. Now we don't have any availability for regular appointments until a month and a half later. I stopped offering to help opticians. So if one person was scheduled, all patients will have to wait for that one person for all adjustments, orders and dispenses. That one had patients up their asses with complaints law. If anyone had a question about anything unrelated to front desk, I couldn't help them. Even when she would ask, I just told her I didn't feel comfortable doing anything outside of reception anymore. I eventually quit, and now work somewhere with a much higher pay and benefits. They've lost a total of 5 out of 11 employees in the span of 1 year, and I heard 2 more are quitting before the end of the year. Edit. The tech didn't die, they quit. Edit 2. To the people saying I shouldn't be doing anything I wasn't certified for. You're right, but that isn't how the business was ran. I think people were hired based on past experiences and aspirations, whether or not they were likely to stay long. The only licensed people in that office were the optometrists. The opticians and previous tech were not licensed or certified in any way. They still did trainings, visual fields, started dilations, etc. They cross-trained as many of us as possible to maintain productivity. In the spirit of sharing and gift-giving, my friends Belle and Adam have shared a story involving entitled individuals, military officers, and a woman with sticky fingers. Our story takes place in the summer of 2006. Belle and Adam were living in a cul-de-sac of about 10 houses, mainly inhabited by officers and their families. As it was the season of grilling, barbecues, and backyard shenanigans, the entire neighborhood decided to host a block party. It was a potluck and a bring-your-own-beverage event. The rule was to bring enough for everyone. The host of the block party was a military officer named Patterson. He's from the Carolinas, and one of their specialties is the whole hog roast. He managed to get 3 whole hogs and roasted them on a friend's property, where he had the space to do so, basting the meat with his special barbecue sauce. The recipe, which, according to Belle, was probably the most secure secret in the country. Unfortunately, Patterson's mother, whom we'll call Goldilocks, was staying with him and his family for a week. She proceeded to wear out her welcome on the first day, using her son's rank to get whatever she wanted. She was a classic entitled person. Nasty, rude, abusive to her family, and just about as pleasant as a severe stomach illness. No matter how much Patterson explained to her that it could damage his career, Goldilocks never seemed to listen. The night before the party, Patterson told his mother that she was 1 offense away from being sent away. On the day of the party, everyone lounged around on deck and camping chairs, having drinks, talking, and waiting for the meat to finish heating up. As everyone knew each other and were right there, everyone's doors were unlocked. Adam went into his and Belle's house to grab some more bottles of soda from the fridge. He just expected to grab the sodas and leave. Just as he was about to get the soda, the landline in the study rang. He went to answer it, and was in the study for maybe 10 to 15 minutes. He heard the front door open and close. A few minutes later, the front door opened and closed again. He thought it was Belle and didn't think much of it. That was until he hung up and went back to the fridge. Something was missing. He and Belle had made some cheesecake to bring to the party, keeping it in a sealed container, and that was missing. He thought that was odd but grabbed the soda bottles and headed out. After loading one of the coolers with the bottles, he sought out Belle and asked her if she had gotten the cheesecake out of the fridge. Confused, Belle said, "No, I haven't." Why? Because someone took the cheesecake. Just then, one of their neighbors said, "Now that you mention it, the container of ambrosia salad I made is also missing." Word spread faster than a wildfire, and it eventually came out that everyone's house was missing something, either from the fridge or the pantry. Patterson looked around, his eyes stern. Belle asked him what was wrong. He just said, "Something I should have done a long time ago," and headed into his house. 20 minutes later, a taxi pulled into the cul-de-sac. stopping right in front of Patterson's house, which was at the end of the block. Everyone was confused when suddenly they heard shouting from inside the house, and not just any kind of shouting. It was Drill Sergeant shouting. Goldilocks came running out of the house, carrying her bags and looking like she had seen a ghost. Patterson was on her heels, a framed photograph in his hands. He was yelling at her, "You're never coming back here again. Do you hear me? If I so much as smell one of your farts around us, you will be out of the state faster than you can sneeze." Goldilocks got into the taxi and they took off. Everyone watched as Patterson became calm and looked at everyone. "Folks, I want to apologize for my mother's behavior. As of right now, she's no longer part of my family. Now let's party like it's going out of style." A couple of days later, Bell decided to ask Patterson what happened. He revealed that Goldilocks had decided to steal food from all of the houses on the block. When he overheard the comments about the missing food, he found her throwing everything into several trash bags. It's then he called the taxi to take her to her sister's house. She lived in the same city, and confronted her. Apparently, Goldilocks decided to complain about how the food wasn't good enough. He then told her she had 20 minutes to pack up and get out of his life forever, or he was calling the police for theft. Goldilocks tried to manipulate him by saying, "You wouldn't leave your old mother out high and dry now, would you?" At this, Patterson unleashed his inner drill sergeant and shut that down. He stood there, watching her pack and following her out to make sure she couldn't try anything foolish. As she was walking towards the door, she passed a framed photograph. The photograph in question was of him with his grandfather, a veteran, who died shortly after it was taken. It's the only photograph of the two men in uniform. Goldilocks decided to take it. At that, Patterson had enough, snapped the photograph out of her hand, and started the scolding that everyone at the party heard. He was good to his word, and had nothing to do with Goldilocks ever again. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. Some context. Yes, I have gone to the police about this. Yes, I am pressing charges. Yes, they have identified him after an appeal to the public. Thank you, Southampton Police. As you can tell from the title, I am physically disabled. My main 4 conditions are Marfan syndrome and scoliosis, somewhat corrected surgically, but I cannot bend over anymore. The third one is arthritis in my legs. Yes, people in their 20s can get arthritis, and while it is not extremely bad, walking more than down my road and back is painful. The fourth condition is post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, from a school life where I almost got killed for being disabled. Because of this combination of conditions, I am unable to ride a normal bicycle, and instead must rely on a mobility scooter. I am experimenting with a custom electric bicycle I cobbled together, but I am not 100% confident with it yet. I love my scooter. I call her Rosie due to her red paint. Sure, she is not a standard mobility scooter, essentially being an electric moped with 2 extra wheels. While she is as maneuverable as a sledgehammer, she can take me a good 50 miles per charge. Plus, I can get to work on it without any issue in about 10 to 20 minutes, depending on traffic. So, on to the incident. I was on my way home and took a route through the local common as usual. Class 3 invalid carriages can go on both walkways and roads. I slid onto one of the main paths when I saw a cyclist ahead of me. He was just cresting the hill and was on my side of the path. I would hazard a guess and say there must have been at most 18 to 20 meters of space between us. Seeing no one behind me, not even a walker, I decided to stop to let him go around me. I got nervous as he closed the gap, going top speed but not slowing down, before he slammed on the brakes. I assumed he had tumbler brakes from the long stopping distance. I did the universal polite driver gesture for "Go on, bud, go around." Then the first thing out of his mouth was, "Get out of my way or I will knock you off your scooter." Not being foolish, I whipped out my phone, stuck in my earbuds, they have a better quality mic, and hit record. He commented, "Oh, you're recording now." And I informed him that yes, because he had made a physical threat. I will admit I was being a bit of a jerk during our recorded interaction, but I show zero respect to people who think they can use intimidation to get over me. We argued for about 5 minutes, going over things like the condition of the path and how little I actually cared about his tires. He claimed to have really expensive tires and was worried that going over racks would burst his tires. This puzzled me because aren't the pricier tires more durable? If he is concerned that normal usage of his bike's tires will burst them, why is he cycling? Did I swear at him? Yes, and his response was to, on camera, threaten to attack me if I swore at him again. Swearing is not illegal, but threatening someone is. This led to roughly a 10-minute standoff with him thinking he could bore me out of the way. To pass the time, I pulled my fully charged Steam Deck from my bag and began to play Fallout 3. I put my Steam Deck away after I saw him on the phone with the police. I shouted from my scooter, "How about you inform them about the fact you threatened me?" This, of course, annoyed him. We argued some more. I called him an ableist jerk, to which he then approached me and tried to shove me off my scooter and stole my phone. I got up and shouted for him to give me my phone back, to which he said, "Wait, you can walk." My response was, "Of course I can walk. I am on a scooter, not a wheelchair." My blood was boiling, and I was just about ready to tackle the guy and show him why it's a bad idea to wear glasses around someone who knows how to give a good headbutt. A stranger then approached, as I saw that hefty cyclist stopping the recording and trying to delete the footage. Fortunately, I have been able to recover the footage, because he is a technologically illiterate jerk. My memory is a bit hazy from there, as my blood was running high, and I was trying to keep my head clear. I am fairly sure I shoved that hefty cyclist off his bike, got my phone back, and shouted something at him as he cycled off. The last thing I remember of the incident was that hefty man up in my face, screaming, so he must have turned around. This is where the stranger got involved a second time, shoving him back and yelling at him to get lost. In my other posts, I mentioned that she was forcibly moved to another building owned by the same landlord, 3 streets over. She was given keys to the new apartment in mid-June and immediately started moving. She had her new TV and Wi-Fi set up within days. Her last day allowed at her upstairs apartment in our duplex was July 1st. Our mail carriers are very good for the most part. It's a small town, so you rarely get incorrect mail. However, I know it takes time to forward mail, or sometimes people forget to do it right away, even though she no longer stayed the night since mid-June, when her personal mail was still coming daily after July 1st. I still tried to be understanding. The neighbor was also under the impression that we would be renting her unit as well as ours when she moved. The landlord told us to call the police if we saw her on the cameras after the 1st. Also, we stopped living in our part of the duplex in May 2022 because the harassment was so bad, so we only came back once a month or so. It was still this bad, and she never saw us once since the start of May 22. This nonsense still happened non-stop. We had doorbell cameras, so I ended up texting the manager the next weekday after the 1st, telling them the neighbor had still been getting personal mail, and to remind her to forward her mail and change her address. I really did not want the neighbor to show up or make yet another outlandish accusation. They claimed to text her to change her address and said they would get her mail for her in a few days. I want to say it was the 6th of July when she was finally taken her mail. On July 7th, she started her smear campaign against me on social media. This is relevant to this story but is mostly a story for a different time. Give me suggestions for subreddits to post those in, lol. I will vaguely go over some things. Long story short, I'm not too active on that social media, so it took me a few days to see her posts and such. When I did notice them, I completely ignored them. This was when she started coming to my posts and starting things there. The only thing I said to her, on my own post where she commented and started drama, was to please leave me alone. She no longer even lives there, and I asked her to please let it go. No, I did not block her. Why? Because she had been harassing us, mostly me, for months, and the police could never do anything because it was a neighbor issue. Well, she was no longer my neighbor. Now it was harassment, and I was not going to do any more favors and stop her from giving me the cherry on top of my proof or making a public fool of herself, which she did. During this incident, she stated word for word that she knew where I lived, obviously, and would be waiting for me at the end of my street every day to show me who the bigger woman is. She also said she hopes I like harassment because she is coming for me, and so on. I informed the landlord of all of this with screenshots. On July 15th, the neighbor was still getting daily personal mail to her old apartment. Remember, I mentioned earlier that she thought we were going to rent out her old unit, as well as ours. She showed up a month after she had gotten the keys to her other place, and 2 weeks after she was last allowed on the property. She showed up at our house. We were luckily not home, especially due to all the threats she was making, but she showed up to get her mail. She grabbed everything from her box, which she thought we were renting. That wasn't something I thought about until recently either, because we did not end up renting it and chose to move, but she had a history of stealing mail, which she admitted, but that's another story, and she had no idea we weren't leasing that unit. Well, the neighbor also left a little gift for me. She had been acting odd on camera, but I didn't know why. Until my next-door neighbor texted me to tell me her kid found a bullet in my driveway right where she was acting odd. We called the police. They went to talk to her. She told them a ridiculous story about how she rents both apartments, showed them her old keys as proof, and they believed her. This makes no sense since they were very adamant she no longer lived in our duplex when we called them on the 7th, and tried to talk me into saying the person who was very clearly her, throwing a trash can of liquid waste on my porch and screaming, "Forget you," wasn't her because she no longer lived there. Like, yes, I know you can follow the weekly police calls to see what street she lives on. They called us back and told us she could be in our yard anytime she wants, since she's still a tenant. We corrected them, and they shrugged again, like they didn't just tell us otherwise last week. Then the neighbor messaged my husband saying, "Your rude wife can keep calling the police. I still rent there, you can't do anything. I can come there whenever I feel like it." This was extra annoying, because really how entitled can you be? She was evicted from the duplex in March for non-payment and allegedly owed 5 months of rent the first time. The landlord did let her stay, but she was fully evicted as far as the courts were concerned in March. Yes, I checked, as it's public information in my state. So my husband called the landlord and laid into him. The landlord agreed to serve a no trespass order. To his word, he did so the next day. She didn't take it well but didn't contact us directly again. She was once again reminded to change her address, but did she? No, that would be too easy. A week or so after the no trespass order was served, her daily personal mail was still coming. I mean like past due bills for that address, state and government mail, and other important mail. Again, we weren't home but once a month, so I would see and hear the mail person deliver her mail. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't do anything until I got back to town. We kept our mail on hold, so she was the only person at our duplex getting mail. I again told the manager. I could tell they were getting annoyed, so I asked once more if they would please ask her to change her address. The landlord told me he couldn't do anything. This is when I said forget it. The landlord is annoyed, the manager is annoyed, and the police are so done with her nonsense it's not even funny. So I just did nothing. I let her keep getting her mail sent to my house. I could have done the whole no longer at this address thing, but why would I do that to help her? Plus, I was honestly waiting for her to show up again. She never did, luckily. She never sent anyone, and the landlord never got it for her either. Clearly, it was not important then, right? And again, I was not in town to check even if I wanted to. More of the story for another time, but on August 1st, I was granted an ex parte emergency protection order, which, for those who don't know, is very serious and apparently not easy to get. She was still getting her mail delivered to our house. I used some of this to get the order. Even once she was served with the protection order, had a stalking complaint, and the no trespass order, she just kept getting new mail. Again, important mail. I don't know if she didn't ask them to get it for her because she was also getting evicted from them, but it was even more reason to stop using that address. But I was just so done. The police already showed they were useless. She had made death threats, was stalking me, got away with lying to the police. harassing us with police and emergency services, and even called the police 30 to 40 times in less than 4 hours. No joke. The landlord was obviously no help, and actually enabled her harassment and behavior to this point. I just didn't want to be harmed in my own home or face some other crazy situation. This brings us to the end of October. Yes, and we will use the 1st as her move-out date. She was still getting mail, again daily personal and important mail to her old address which she could not go to, 4 full months after she moved. There was a lot of mail, her box was nearly overflowing. Her mom or anyone really could have gotten it for her, but she clearly didn't care about it. It had been rained on and so on. So I marked out every barcode on all of it with a marker and wrote a big fat "no longer at this address," largely and slowly. About 30 plus pieces of mail, marker, marker, marker. I know this is legally what you can and are even supposed to do, but again, I just really did not want to deal with her anymore, nor do her any favors. Then I marked both our mailboxes vacant, with United States Postal Service legal labels. Even if she did keep getting mail there, our landlord evicted her, for real this time, the same month, or maybe even in September. We moved several hours away, but people give us updates often. We don't ask for them, it's just a small town. Last I heard, she's sleeping on couches. No idea if she ever got her mail or changed her address, but her old apartment is still vacant, so she may be trying to claim squatters' rights or some nonsense. Thanks for reading yet another story, and if you have ideas for good subreddits for more stories about my neighbor, I have more stories. So the year before COVID hit the US, I started working for one of the major airlines at my local airport as a baggage handler. I absolutely loved the job. I just enjoyed being around planes from the ground level. When I started, there were no full-time positions available, so I was working part-time 6-hour nights 5 times a week. The way it usually works is each gate has a lead, the person with extra training, to do the load planning and scanning, and towing the planes to the runway, as well as guiding them in, and a few baggage handlers. Now I had only been there a few months, but I was working hard and showing that I was a team player. I decided I was gonna try to become a lead, even though they usually want you to work a year or so as a handler first. I was confident and ended up passing the training course with ease. The problem was they had no availability for more leads, so I was put into what was basically an on-call lead kind of thing, where they could upgrade me for the day if they needed more leads. Now, whenever they upgrade you to lead, even if it's for a single flight, they have to pay you the extra $1.75 the leads get for your whole shift. Remember, I work 6-hour days, so $10.50 is the cost to make me a lead for my shift. Now for a few months, everything was great. I was a part-time baggage handler, but I was working as a lead for my whole shift every shift, and I was loving every second of it. Something about towing huge planes full of people to the runway was just awesome to me. Enter everyone's favorite virus, good old COVID-19. Within months, the airline industry is tanking pretty hard, as nobody wants to travel and get stuck somewhere. Supervisors are being told to cut costs everywhere they can, which makes sense given the circumstances. Cue up the night of my MC. It's maybe 11 p.m., and I'm on till 1 a.m. Supervisors have sent a large chunk of workers home, and those of us left are being sent all over the airport to cover the flights we do still have coming. I get a call from the office that assigns your flights, and I'm told to go grab a box and a walkie, the stuff needed to plug into the plane to talk to the flight deck. They tell me to head to the gate when the flights land at 5, and to just put in my request for lead. When asked to be a lead, you put it in on the company app, and a supervisor approves your pay raise for the day. I get to my gate, check the load coming off the plane, brief the handlers on what's coming down, and we all get to our spots to bring the plane in. I see the plane coming down the lane to my gate, and at the same time my zone supervisor drives up to my gate and asks me to come over. He then tells me something along the lines of, "Hey man, we can't upgrade you to lead right now. We just can't swing that extra expense right now." I respond with, "Okay, so who's going to bring this plane? Is nobody else on the gate lead trained?" and supervisors are already not allowed to do any of our work because of the union rule. He then tells me he is going to go find another lead to bring it in, and to just assist him when he arrives. So I am like, sure, whatever. Now it's important to note that planes have very tight metrics for how long it can take to bring a flight in, unload, and reload for the next flight. The flight pulls up to the edge of my gate and comes to a stop, as there's no lead there guiding them in, so the flight just sits there waiting, and the entire gate crew are also just standing around waiting. 20 minutes go by, and the radio I still have on me goes off, and the office is mad. They want to know why the hell I'm holding this flight short and not bringing it in, to which obviously I reply with, "What do you mean? Ex-supervisor told me they couldn't afford to pay me for lead work today, and that he would find someone else. He then asks me if I can please just bring it in for him, and I said, sorry, but if you're not willing to pay me to do the lead work, then I'm only going to do the handler work I am being paid for." As it turns out, they sent too many leads home this night, and the ones they did have were all busy on flights already. After about 45 minutes, a lead from 2 terminals over finally strolls up, and we're able to unload the plane as usual. But that 45 minutes, the plane sat idle at the gate, cost thousands in extra fuel plus overtime for flight attendants, forced into mandatory overtime from the situation. Not to mention all the passengers who were angry about the extra weight were all comped some credits with the airline for the trouble. I also come to find out the supervisor's bonus were based on flight turn time, and this 45 minutes short hold probably cost him his bonus and a write-up. So basically the supervisor didn't want to pay me the $10.50 for me to be a lead for the day, and instead cost the airline thousands on a heavily delayed plane at the gate, and probably his yearly bonus. And that all could have been avoided by just paying me the extra $1.75 hour for my 6-hour shift. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences and opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.